All right, welcome back to another episode of Six Scale Scavengers. If you're a new listener or a returning listener, welcome. My name is Brian Fontaine. As always, with my co-host and good friend, Chris Letty, the Vintage Viewport. And Chris, got a great episode. Not a lot of news since last time, but you know what? That's all right. With Hot Toys Collecting, we can always dredge up something to talk about on this fine podcast.
Yeah, plenty to talk about. Plenty to talk about.
Unfortunately, we got to lead the show off with, some sad news, maybe bittersweet. I love the fact that we all lived to at least 95, but our beloved Stan Lee passed away this past week in between our last recording. And, with a focus of this Hot Toys podcast on Marvel, the MCU, and Star Wars, I feel like we can't not talk about the legacy of Stan the Man and what he meant not only to Marvel, to comic books, to just Chris, just learning more about him as a person. And I think one of the things I found the most fascinating about him that I didn't know is back in the 50s and 60s, they do the mailbag and stuff at the end of a lot of the comics, and he'd have just columns that he would write, and it's good life advice 50, 60 years later. It's just amazing.
It is really amazing all the things that Stan went through before he even created some of these characters. He was, he was at the point where he was about ready to give up, and his wife told him, just write what you really want to write. And that's when he created Fantastic Four. And he was about 40 years old at that point. And it being close to that age right now, it gives me hope. There's still plenty of life to live and so much more that you can do and follow those dreams, no matter what age you are. And it's just, he is one of the top, if not the most influential people within pop culture that we've ever known. It's just amazing. All the characters and stories that he's brought to us as fans.
Yeah, I think between him and Jack Kirby of Marvel Comics lore, I mean, you mentioned Fantastic Four, Chris. I mean, Spider-Man, Hulk, Daredevil, Iron Man, Thor, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Inhumans, Ant-Man, Groot, Nick Fury, Hawkeye, Falcon. We could just keep going. He's created thousands of characters, and according to his daughter, he was working on another character, right up until he had passed. And it would be interesting to see. Believe it, she had said the name was going to be Dirtman. So we don't know if that will ever, see the light of day. I think just based on his legacy, I think we will in some capacity. And just the comics that we know and love today, we would not have because of him. And I think the thing that makes Marvel resonate with so many people, the comics, the movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, his fingerprints are all over it. Not only does he make cameos and everything, his trademark Excelsior, and I know you and I haven't talked about this prior, but I just as a tribute to him, I feel like we should probably sign off with some variation of that. I know we also use our Star Wars reference as well, but and I think he just, resonating with so many people because creating characters with flaws that aren't perfect, they're relatable. I mean, he was a big proponent of making the original X-Men team and, teenagers that just couldn't fit in because of their mutant powers but still helping out humanity. And I think those, X-Men has been one of the largest franchises that Marvel has, and it will be fitting that at some point they may be able to bring the X-Men, Fantastic Four into the Marvel Cinematic Universe because they are such a big part. And you think of all the success that Marvel and Disney have had with just, maybe 2/3 of the characters available to them, just even more great stories that are there to tell. And I think we owe a lot of that to Stan Lee. So Stan, rest in peace, and hopefully we can continue to honor your legacy as we as we move forward.
His legacy will carry on for many, many years, and many generations to come will at least get to experience what he's brought to pop culture and fandom in general.
All right, Chris, let's head on over to news as we tend to do on our podcast. This is our 9th episode, I believe. And Chris, this is the first time we have not had a new Marvel or Star Wars character to talk about that's been dropped. It's a little disappointing, and we finally broke that streak. If you didn't catch our last episode, Chris, you had a great theory on why we're seeing so many of these Infinity War figures potentially early. And it's not even just the Infinity War figures, it's just a lot of figures. So I honestly do think that your theory was pretty spot on. So we're not going to rehash that. If you haven't had an opportunity to go back and listen to episode 8 of our podcast, highly recommend that. So Chris, this is in no real particular order, but I do want to kind of riff on a little bit of these because some of the great YouTube reviewers out there already have some of these figures in hand. And I don't know about you, I've already sat there and watched through several of these for each of these characters. There a lot of these are ones that both you and I have been highly anticipating. I don't know. I'm really excited. I think one of the ones I'm most excited about was seeing Iron Spider released in Hong Kong last week. People already have it in hand, and it's interesting to see, Chris, the suit. I think that's where everybody had seen the prototypes and they wanted to know, what is the material of the suit? Is it going to hold up over time? What is the articulation like? And I tell you what, I'm really looking forward to having this one in hand.
Yeah, Iron Spider. It looks amazing from the videos. Yeah, I checked them all out. Some great imagery and everything. Yeah, we might be looking at a few areas of concern, but it's going to be something that we're all going to experience. This technology with the suit and everything, and so I'm looking forward to it. Got some interesting features with that figure, and yeah, man, that one should be coming soon, released in Hong Kong, like we said. So a lot of our listeners actually have that also. And then another one that was released is Captain America Infinity War. Again, another figure that I've got on pre-order. I know you do too. Both eagerly anticipating that one. Man, that figure looks pretty good. Looks pretty good in person.
But the haters are already out there, my friend.
Oh, they are. They're in full force with this one.
I think you and I had texted back and forth the day that it was released in Hong Kong, and I'm like, something looks weird with his upper lip, and I think it's just because the upper, the mustache part of his beard. I think just the way, and we've said it before, and we'll say it again, we're not experts, but the lighting on some of the pictures and just the angle, it looked kind of weird. But having seen a lot of the different review videos of people having it in hand, and I think it's eased a lot of the concerns. It definitely has the likeness to Chris Evans, in my opinion. A lot of people are comparing it to the lead character in The Walking Dead, and I probably sacrilegious to say this, but I've only watched the pilot way back when that first came out, and I have not watched it since. So Andrew, is it Andrew Lincoln?
Yeah. Yeah, you're not missing much this season. So.
No, and that's what I figured too. Again, if you love Captain America like I do, like you do, Chris, you are going to get this figure regardless. Again, I feel like I had another soapbox rant last episode too about, if you want a figure, just go get it. Don't wait for somebody else to tell you it's good or not. Those are the type of figures you're going to have in your collection, and you're always going to feel like you have regrets about buying it. You're probably going to ultimately end up selling it. Don't buy something because somebody else said it's good. Just get it on your own accord. But just all the accessories on this one just look fantastic. I cannot wait to have this one in hand. I think in Infinity War, I'm just getting all excited about this. I want to I'm kind of in. I had started going through all the Star Wars movies, and I had just finished Empire the other day. Unfortunately, when you're old like me and you don't have a lot of time to watch movies, you usually have to break it up over a couple nights. So I'd gone all the way through the prequels. I'd watched Solo, Rogue One, New Hope, Empire, and I got Return of the Jedi, The Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi up to finish. But then I want to go back, and earlier this year, prior to Infinity War, I had watched through all of the Marvel MCU films, and I feel like I'd want to do that anyways. And almost like we said, kind of as a tribute to Stan Lee going back. And I really want to watch Infinity War again. I think just the figure that we're going to talk about this episode, and again, being bad hosts, we don't even have an agenda for anybody. We're going to be covering Thor from Infinity War. Between that, we previously both had Black Widow and a lot of the other figures that we have coming. It's just, man, I want to watch that film again.
It's one of those movies that you can just watch over and over, man. There's so much depth to that movie. Yeah, I need to do a rewatch. I'd love to find the time to go through the whole MCU again before the end of the year, but yeah, it's tough to find the time.
That one is going to hopefully be in hand for both of us before the end of the year, just like Iron Spider. Some other intel that we've been able to gather from the various Facebook groups out there, like our own, we have our own private Facebook group, 6-scale scavenger collectors. One of the things that it's kind of a thing, just like a thing for us, is saying day one pre-order. A lot of people have a tendency to take screenshots of their emails from Sideshow saying when a figure is going to come. Obviously, they're going to blank out their order number. But I'll be honest, Chris, I kind of look forward to seeing those because it gives us information about when these figures are going to start coming here stateside. And, obviously you and I don't have the budgets to just order every figure as it comes out. I mean, that's just not our shtick. So it's interesting to see that later this month, Emperor Palpatine is coming out. And I think that one was originally delayed a little bit. I think it was supposed to be a month after the Royal Guards had come out. Those are out already. Very interested to see that one in hand and see how that one looks.
Emperor Palpatine, he's going to fill out that display nicely. You could get him with the throne and without, pair him up with those Royal Guards, and can make for a mean display. And from what I've seen, it looks like a really good figure. I know there's a lot of reviews on it already, but yeah, I think a few of our listeners have that figure on order.
As I was just mentioning that collector group, and obviously we record this and I edit the crap out of it afterwards, but PJ in our collector group just got a in-hand movie promo edition of Captain America. PJ, I'm officially jealous of you, buddy.
Totally jealous.
And as we mentioned last time, he's got a great YouTube channel, The Paradox Nerd. So get ready to hopefully check that out soon. And once we see that, we'll definitely share that out on either our private group or we now have a traditional Facebook page as well. Nothing like being completely distracted by Captain America.
Yeah, normal circumstances.
For me, it's a normal occurrence. So other stuff, we've got a lot of those figures. We just talked about some of them, not the most popular ones, Chris, but some of them are in stock at Sideshow. No longer need to worry about pre-order them. I know a figure you had in hand and we reviewed some time ago was Hela, and that's now available. And you found, I feel like you peeked through the keyhole a little bit, my friend, and you saw that there's some upcoming Black Friday deals from our friends at Sideshow. Kind of some repeat deals from Spooktacular, but then you and I, right before we recorded, were taking a look, and just as much fun it is to get those day one pre-orders, sometimes waiting on some of the figures that may not be as mainstream or as popular, you might be able to save a little bit of money. We just saw that, for example, a figure we reviewed a couple episodes ago with Rey Jedi training from The Last Jedi. There's a deal you can get 10% off that right now and free shipping. That doesn't stink. I mean, that's a great figure. I know that movie isn't for everybody and we're not here to debate that. However, sometimes just by waiting a little bit, you can get one of the deal. And to be honest, free shipping from Sideshow, that's almost like $20 off. And you get $20 off for free shipping, and you also get a discount on the figure. You take advantage of those things, and we'll recommend our listeners to go out and see what they may have coming up for Black Friday deals. I know there's some in the official Sideshow Facebook group. I think Let Your Geek Sideshow is the next, what they call that now. And they have some upcoming contests. It looks like, I don't think we're going to get the number of, reward codes, Chris, that we got for Spooktacular, but they aforementioned Tashi Station, our friend John Martino out there is already with his admins in Tashi Station. I've already set up another messenger group in anticipation that we may get a couple codes here and there. Again, if Sideshow does decide to do that and it's free money, you'd be silly not to take advantage of it.
I was kind of surprised. I didn't expect there to be a Geeks Giving deal, thing going on, especially after Spooktacular was only a few weeks ago. But hey, I think Sideshow's realizing that getting their advertising out this way really works and it gets people excited. And again, I've already seen a lot of people being added to that messenger group. They're like, hey, what's this all about? And it was the same thing for Spooktacular. So, I mean, I got to give it to Sideshow to continue the trend. And who knows, maybe we'll see something for Christmas too. I don't know if there was anything last year, but even if we get enough codes, 5, 10, $15, I mean, that's more than we could ask for freebies. But yeah, check out Sideshow's group there. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. Check out the Hot Toys pages on their website because there's definitely some deals. If you missed out on Spooktacular, check them out. I know that Gladiator Hulk and Groot and Rocket and there's and Black Widow. It's just there's deals to be had. So check them out.
All right, let's kind of talk about our collection update. That's one thing that both you and I, although we don't pretend to be experts, I think just in full disclosure, just letting kind of people know maybe where our focuses are changing, things that we're looking at, maybe deals we got. I think our listeners like this because then it shows that we're not just talking about things that, we don't know anything about, which, we don't, but it's nice to think that we do. So Chris, we got a pretty busy collection update, and I guess we'll start it off because we are going to be talking about the Infinity War Thor figure, which is MMS 474. We both have that in hand. We're going to have the dueling review today, which I'm looking forward to. And you and I have talked briefly about this figure, so it'll be interesting to see a little bit more in-depth thoughts. So you and I both added that and both recently added concept art Captain America, and that will probably be our next review. I mean, we're going to have an embarrassment of riches for reviews coming up. And I say that loosely because as soon as we get through that, that logjam of figures, we're going to go back to having nothing to talk about. But that's a good problem to have. We'll figure that out. So we both have that cap in hand. And as somebody that just became my 10th Captain America figure, and I was looking at my collection, Chris, and the only other figure that I haven't added out of all the 10 Captain Americas I have, it was only the second one I've gotten brand new. The other one was I got the stealth only cap, not the dual set from Big Bad Toy Store earlier this year. And it was it was pretty cool to have, a new figure that obviously all the other ones I've gotten used either on groups or eBay and stuff were all very carefully taken care of. Mine as well have been brand new, but there's just something cool about opening a new Captain America figure.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll most likely talk about that figure next time. Yeah, I cracked that thing open, and that was my first Captain America. Very excited. So yeah, I'm glad to have added that. I know.
Yeah, spoiler alert. I think it's in my top 3.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet figure. All right, so what? I know you've been selling off some of your collection.
Oh,
so what's going on?
Yeah, big time selling off. And some people in our Facebook group know about this, but I've kind of gone on this 3-week binge of cleaning out a lot of my Funko collection. I just decided, not only is it not something that I just want to continue collecting going forward, I saw some opportunities with some of the ones that I had that it might be able to an opportunity to kind of get out on the high end versus having some falling value. And just there's great sites out there like Pop Price Guide and stuff that will, allow you to input your collection, and then you can kind of see some trending stuff and some figures that at one point were more on the higher end variants and, exclusives and stuff like that. And just seeing the values of them kind of coming down, I was like, I think it's a pretty good time to continue to shift my focus more into hot toys. Over the course of the last, I'd say 3 weeks, I've probably sold over 50 Funkos. And let me tell you, it's kind of a pain in the butt to package up those. And I was hoping by offering free shipping, Chris, that I would have people that would win multiple things and it would be easier to ship out. And I think out of all of that, I think maybe I had 5 or 6 that I was able to put at least 2 together. So that backfired a little bit, but in the long run, it was definitely worth it. Also, just kind of taking a look at, my existing collection and just looking to see if there's any figures I had. I did decide to part with my Age of Ultron Black Widow. Out of the 5 Black Widow figures I had, it was kind of my least favorite, and she kind of got voted off the island, or the island of Detov. So, and that's one that's pretty readily available on eBay. I would say if you want a Black Widow figure, that's definitely the one. It's a good entry, and there's just an abundance of them out there, and a lot of it just has to do with, the hair gets very frizzy, and you needs, a lot of the things that we talked about with the Infinity War Black Widow at the time, where there's a lot of great YouTube reviews and stuff out there of how to tame the Black Widow Infinity War hair. I think I'm going to try it myself, Chris. I got some hair wax. I got a little comb. I think I'm going to try to do the Barbie thing with it. I'm just scared to death. But anyway, so I did decide to part with Black Widow. I get a little bit less than I was looking for, but not only just from clearing out, but from creating space. Talked about before too, just not having tons and tons of space to display everything. That kind of having to churn kind of the bottom of your collection every so often is kind of important to do.
Yep, no regrets, man. But,
well, speaking of no,
hold on, yeah, we'll have to,
yeah, speaking of no regrets, so I teased it last episode, and the deal was kind of almost the way through, and I didn't really want to talk about it because it still wasn't all the way finalized. But on another Facebook group, 1/6 Republic Buy Sell Trade, I happen to be perusing there. I've been kind of, as I mentioned before, I'm kind of changing a focus, looking at getting Iron Man. And I mentioned it, I teased it last time out that I was still kind of upset with myself that I had decided to part with my Mark 47. And we try to give the advice of not having regrets. Well, I basically have regretted it ever since. So, Chris, I rectified that. I basically just got it back for what I had sold it for. So it was kind of an even swap.
Nice.
and I'd also been and this too, because I had you kind of out on the lookout for me too. But the Mark V was definitely, something that I was looking for. And, both of those on eBay are going for a lot. And I found a seller that was, selling a few of those figures and happened to have both. And we went back and forth and talked about it. And for what I figured going rates on, on eBay and getting it shipped and having it basically be in new condition, batteries never installed. And, I've got them both in hand and definitely lift up to the description. So I'm excited to have those. I actually haven't had time, Chris, to set those up yet. And I've just been so busy with work, and we're recording right before Thanksgiving, and I'm just thinking now out loud as I'm saying it, wouldn't have been really nice to have some sort of a topic related to what we're thankful for Thanksgiving. But yeah, again, bad host.
Yeah, life and everything gets in the way, and we can kind of just throw a show together,
But I might as well continue this little train going before I throw it back over to you. Also, I had mentioned it on Sideshow with having the the Iron Man focus now. And again, I've just been kind of waiting to spend some of the budget dollars. I've been kind of easing back a lot lately for the last couple episodes. I really hadn't had a lot of activity, but did do pre-orders for both the Mark II and the concept art Mark 46. I've got those on payment plans. Basically, my rationale for that, Chris, was they're figures I eventually wanted to add, but with the market rate of a lot of these figures, and you're basically not able to touch any of these things after retail for 100 to 150 more. And it was a situation where if I'm going to probably want it, I might as well go for it now and then just worry about it afterwards.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I'm still debating some other figures that are still up for pre-order, but I feel the same way. I think the Iron Man, the diecast, it seems that's the way it's going to go for a while, and unless the reissue thing starts happening more often, which I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see it for a couple of years. Probably we'll have the Mark 43 and the Hulkbuster reissued, but yeah, go for those ones if you can. Hopefully, you'll be getting those soon. Well, hold on. Is the Mark II already shipping for you, or
so
which one
that's
was?
yeah. Oh, and I had mentioned it, I think last episode too with the Mark IV, and that actually I'll probably have in hand before our next episode. A lot of that Iron Man goodness on the way. I finally got converted. I mean, it's probably one of the things that hot toy collectors complain about the most about how many Iron Man figures are, but I don't care. I'm going to be nostalgic about my collection and have a lot of Captain America and a lot of Iron Man because, as I've said before, I worry for the health of both of those characters going forward after Avengers 4.
Yeah,
Which could jack the price up even more if we know we're not going to see them anymore. So I gambled right leading up to Infinity War with trying to get a lot of the Captain America figures I had before. Not that I had a feeling that Chris Evans is going to be his last film, as Captain America in Infinity War, but there was enough buzz about it that I was like, if he's then going to be out, then if these are all the figures we're going to be looking at, then they're going to go up in value. And I'm kind of, yeah, I could be making a wrong assumption about that, but even if I'm wrong, it's not because I feel like I'm going to resell any of these characters, figures out of my collection anytime soon. It's more of, is it more advantageous to get in before the getting's bad than it is while it's still decent, because it could just skyrocket from there. I mean, we didn't talk about it at the top because I didn't want to throw in a sales pitch for something, but with Stan Lee, they did create, Hot Toys did make a Stan Lee figure, and unfortunately the second and the day that the news broke of his untimely passing, people were out there trying to, hawk their Stan Lee figure on eBay for, Chris, I think you found him for $600 to $900.
Yeah, sales in the last 2 weeks. The lowest one I found was $599.99, and the highest one I found was $900. So that was completed eBay sales.
And that's just, I mean, it is what it is. It's, it's supply and demand and whatnot. We're not here to say, is that a good thing or a bad thing? But I think it just shows you what, the market can just jump before you. I mean, and you come from the vintage collecting world, Chris, so firsthand how some of these things can just get out of hand really quick, just depending on what people are doing out there in the market.
It's insane what can happen. When Carrie Fisher passed away, Princess Leia vintage Star Wars stuff just went through the roof. I mean, stuff that was going for $40 6 months prior was going for a loose complete Princess Leia figure, $150, $200 in amazing condition. I mean, that's like just a crazy jump. Things kind of settled down over the last year or so, but they're still high, and it's probably going to be that way for that Stan Lee figure. I know I just looked because it was kind of one that I wanted, but I wasn't really pursuing it. I'm like, oh, I'll just see what they're going for. And then my jaw hit the floor and I'm like, okay, I don't think I'll be getting that figure anytime soon. Things can fluctuate like crazy. I mean, I'll just go back to it when I started collecting, a few months before Infinity War, I was getting great deals on figures, and I've been just switching, searching those figures now and then, and I can't even come within like $50 of a lot of them. The prices are just, it's crazy what's happened in the last 6 to 8 months with the Hot Toys figures on the secondary market.
And you can find a lot of those values right on our Hot Toys checklist on sixscalescavengers.com. Plug time alert.
Yes, you can. Check it out.
All right. Anything else, Chris?
Yeah. So last time I actually went to Sideshow figure route with the Rebel Commandos, and I finished off that trifecta with the Rebel Commando Sergeant. So I got a good deal on that, sealed and never opened.
Least surprising news ever.
Yeah, right. I know. Gosh.
So predictable.
Right. And it was, I mean, the price compared to one of the Hot Toys is pretty reasonable. And then the only other thing is, I just, like a lot of other collectors and listeners, I got the email from Sideshow saying that Loki is going to ship on November 29th. So we're looking forward to that one 2 or 3 weeks here. So
again, chalked it up to one more figure we'll probably have to review, and we're trying to keep an every 2 week schedule going on. Both of us, having families and careers and stuff, it's most of the time that we do have available, and we're trying our best. But I think also too, knowing that we'll hopefully get to a lot of these figures that we have recently gotten, and hopefully you're not waiting on our opinions on some of these figures. I mean, a lot of those YouTube reviewers that we've talked about, that's going to be your best bet. We're here more to talk about the news, what the news means to us, talk about our own collection, and hopefully help people learn. And anybody new to the journey of collecting Hot Toys, hopefully can be a resource for those individuals, just like people were there to pay it forward for us, and just provide, our website and our podcast, and just try to, we're here to help people out and also hear ourselves talk.
Yeah, I love hearing myself talk. No, I really don't. But no, it's just expanding that community. And I know a lot of our listeners, they don't have too many fellow Hot Toys collectors in their area. So it's just, for them, it's like, it just gives them a little outlet to connect with us. And so hopefully in the future, we can expand on those conversations, and we'll kind of see how things play out.
Absolutely. So speaking of expanding on those conversations, and like I said, probably would have been smart to have some sort of a theme related to the holiday with Thanksgiving coming up, but hindsight's 2020. So anyways, our topic that we threw out to our private Facebook group, Six Scale Scavenger Collectors, we did it a few episodes ago with kind of a wish list for Star Wars. So we wanted to give equal love to Marvel and the MCU. We threw it out to our listeners and said, either things that have either been teased so far and not released, or figures you'd love to see. Chris, what I did, very scientific approach. I just went through everybody's posts and jotted down the figures that they had suggested, and then the ones that came up with higher frequency. I figure we talk about those first. And we've got those lists in front of us, Chris. And to be honest, some things surprising, some things not so much. I'd say the figures that were higher on the list are things that have been teased but not released. And as we've speculated in the past, Hot Toys is going to produce figures that are going to sell. And unfortunately, secondary villains or villains from some of the smaller MCU films, they're probably not going to sell. And it's unfortunate because, and I hate to say, like, Vulture is a secondary villain, because I think he's been one of the best MCU villains. And I was talking to a friend this past weekend who hadn't seen Spider-Man Homecoming, and we were talking about Infinity War. I'm like, you need to see Spider-Man Homecoming. Not only is it a great film, it has one of the best, most intense scenes that doesn't involve fighting in the whole MCU, and we can thank Vulture for that. And we had 3 people that want the Vulture figure. I hope they do make this. It's going to be enormous, with an enormous wingspan, Chris, if they do that, though.
Yeah, the prototype that's been, making the con circuit is just, again, I'll say, it's a jaw-dropping figure. The detail is insane. The costume, just everything about that figure looks just absolutely amazing. So I think that figure they've done Keaton for Batman. They can do an older Keaton head sculpt. It's probably going to be a $500 figure, though. It's probably $450 at least.
Yeah, so, I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, I just, it's a tough call for that one. I don't know. Maybe we'll kind of see how much of a role Vulture has in Far From Home, but I hope we don't have to wait that long for that figure to, to be up for pre-order. But we'll see. And other there's a couple of other villains, secondary villains up here on the list. Crossbones got three votes, and that's a figure that's been teased. It's a great looking figure. There's a company out there making a, kind of a pseudo Crossbones figure, because anticipating it not being released from Hot Toys. But we never know. Frank Grillo kind of hints at, maybe something Crossbones makes an appearance in Avengers 4. Who knows? I mean, it's all hearsay, but it's a figure that I would love to have. It would be great to set up in a display. There's also Yellow Jacket from Ant-Man. I don't think they would make that figure. It looks great, the prototype and everything, but I can't see them making that figure at this point, unless whatever he comes back in the third Ant-Man film. But I don't know. Any other ones on the top of this list stick out to you?
Not surprising. We had a couple of general comments that just people want to see X-Men figures, and I think we're really going to have to wait for them to potentially rejoin the MCU, which it looks like that deal between Disney and Fox is likely going to happen. We're not here to speculate on that. Some other ones that didn't really surprise me. I know this is a figure that you've wanted for a while, Chris. I know Nebula was another one high in the list with 3, Mantis with 2. Not surprising there. Again, secondary villains, Ronan from Guardians, and it looks like, spoiler alert, we might see him in Captain Marvel. And just looking through some other ones, we're kind of anticipating Far From Home. You just mentioned that. We know that Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be Mysterio, so we're probably going to get a Mysterio figure. Well, maybe. We don't know. We didn't get a Vulture, so
yeah.
People want that. I think one that was pretty cool was Wong from Doctor Strange and Infinity War. He's a cool character, a background character, but I don't think he's iconic enough to get to a figure. And I mean, you're talking about production and cost and release and stuff. I don't see him being somebody that a lot of people are going to clamor for. I could be completely wrong. I think one that would do well, and we had a couple on the list from Deadpool 2, obviously with Cable, Colossus, just a lot of stuff from Fantastic Four. Somebody had mentioned going back to the Raimi Spider-Man films and getting, Green Goblin and Doc Ock from that. I wouldn't complain about that. The Black Order, Children of Thanos. I think some of these were on your list, but I've seen your list before, and I can't really disagree with a lot of these, with Valkyrie or Falcon and Drax from Infinity War, M'Baku, Okoye, Peggy Carter. I would get a Peggy Carter one in a heartbeat. And some of these, they're just they're cool. They would be nice to have, but the way that Hot Toys is going, it's highly unlikely that they'll make some of these, and it's kind of unfortunate, because if they did them, they would do them, I feel, very well.
Yeah, it kind of makes me sad thinking that a figure like M'Baku or Heimdall, I just think of what those figures could be and how amazing the sculpts would look, and the costumes and their accessories and everything. They would be pretty sweet figures, but again, it's more likely that we get an Infinity War Falcon or an Infinity War Drax, which are both figures that I would get because I don't have those figures yet. But it's like, that's why a lot of people say, oh man, another Iron Man. Because, we want these figures to fill in our displays and be a little bit more versatile with how we set up the figures and stuff. But unfortunately, it's kind of the way it goes. I mean, if you look at, there's a reason that the figures are on sale on Sideshow, Black Widow, Infinity War. I mean, the figure's great, but again, there's been so many Black Widows, and people they've got their figures and it's hard when there's like, it's not that much different from, yeah, she has blonde hair, but I mean, it's not that much different from the other releases and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I think it would be nice for Hot Toys to experiment a little bit. Maybe they make an exclusive for a show next year. You know, say it's a Koye or one of those figures, and kind of see how they sell. I mean, a lot of those exclusives, they're hard to get on the secondary market. The prices go up drastically, and so we'll see. I think we got a pretty good list here. Lots. I'd like to see all these figures. Honestly, I mean, it would be great. My wallet wouldn't like it, but yeah, I mean, we'll just keep speculating. It's fun to do that, and it's fun to make these wish lists and see where people stand with direction they would like to see the focus go for Hot Toys. But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think in the exercise, not only is it a fun thing to do, but I think it's also, worthwhile to do it. And we had done it a couple episodes ago with the Star Wars one. And you kind of think about figures, at least with Star Wars, there's far fewer films than there are for the MCU, and ones that you just know they're going to make and they just haven't gotten to it yet. Whether they make it next year or 3 years from now, if it's something that gets released and it would instantly be a day one pre-order, it doesn't hurt to kind of maybe set some money aside or kind of keep saving a couple bucks here and there. So when it does happen, you can just not have any regrets. I think that's one of the most important things as a collector. When you have regrets, it gets very expensive. I'm speaking from experience.
Yes, you know all too well.
All right, let's talk about something we don't have any regrets about. And I'm going to jump to some early conclusions about this. And it'll be interesting to see what our review scale on this. I feel like I just came up with this, and hopefully you're good with this, but I'm going to say we're going to rate this figure on how many sweet rabbits it is.
Sweet rabbits. Yes, that works for me.
Our feature figure review this time out, and this is one of those dueling reviews that we're going to have because we actually have this both in hand. It's both on our desk, but this is Thor from Avengers Infinity War, MMS 474, retailing right now for $267. Figure that I want to say, Chris, that my memory's failing me, but I feel like this was something released in teased in early February. Some reason February 12th is kind of sticking out in my mind when we started getting a lot of these Infinity War previews. And this was one of the first ones that dropped, I think, on the same day as Groot and Rocket in that combo package. And this is one, the prototype looked decent. I don't know about you, Chris, but this for me took me seeing the film, realizing how kick-ass Thor is in this film. And then it took it even a little bit further to see the releases in Hong Kong, people having this in a hand and just basically calling it is what it is at this point. And I feel like it's the ultimate Thor.
It is the ultimate Thor, man. It's a great figure. I was really excited to see everybody's in-hand reviews and photos of this guy. It just blew me out of the water as far as I expected a good figure, but man, some of the, especially some of the photography that the professionals do, kind of photoshopping and some effects and that sort of thing. I mean, it looked like Hemsworth was right there getting the picture taken of him in the Thor garb, but great figure, man. So you got this one recent. You ordered this one recently, right?
Actually, during Spooktacular.
Okay. Yeah.
So and I was even a recent. So I was nowhere near a day one pre-order, and I can't remember if I had actually done it as a payment plan, or I think I knew that it was coming out, and I had some money set aside in my budget, and I just decided to do it as a one time. So as soon as it was available, they sent it, and I certainly have no regrets about it whatsoever. I think initially when we saw the prototype and we saw that it had the eye patch, and I wasn't terribly crazy about that, and we saw that it was going to be Stormbreaker and not Meow Meow Mjolnir.
Meow meow.
Yeah, meow meow.
Love it.
I just wasn't sure about it, but man, he was like, in my estimation, the one of the stars of Infinity War. I feel like he gave that film, the gravity that it needed, and his story was kind of really one of the main points through the entire thing. And just the scene, and we've talked about it before, talking about the film in Infinity War, which we both love. The scene when Thor, Groot, and Rocket show up in Wakanda, and he's bring me Thanos. Just that part is it just it amps me up every single
gives
time.
Me chills every time.
And I feel like, and I don't know specifically if I'm just making this up in my own head, if it's fake news or something, but I feel like a lot of the people that, whether it was Joss Whedon or just anybody else that had Thor, and I don't think they really able to capture the essence of how freaking powerful he is. In the first Avengers and Age of Ultron, he always felt like he had the training wheels on. I feel like on Wakanda, we got full scale, like this is what Thor would be, and he'd level an entire warfield of all of the Outriders and stuff. I mean, he just kicks some butt.
Yeah, we got a taste of it in Ragnarok.
Yeah, Ragnarok was probably the first one, so we can probably thank Taika Waititi for unleashing Thor and not just relying on Meow Meow and having all the the lightning and everything.
I know. He his dad said it's you're the one with the power. The Mjolnir was your way to channel that power, and once he figured out how to control it, I mean, he just went all out and defeated Hela in Ragnarok, and then continued that.
Whoa! Spoiler alert!
Oh, sorry.
I'm just kidding.
I guess if you haven't seen Ragnarok at this point, it's been a year. So sorry about that, people, listeners, the few of you that might not have seen it. But no, in Infinity War, he was like the breakout star. Maybe him and Doctor Strange, really showed, where those characters could go. And this figure, it's a good representation of that character, and it's just great to have the figure in hand, and it just makes me think of that movie, and it makes me smile, and that's what it's all about with these figures and stuff. And just going back, this was not, I don't think I did a day one pre-order, but so my order date was March 7th, and I know that I had the Gladiator Thor on pre-order, and then when this one came out, I was like, I think that's when I canceled my Gladiator Thor and decided to go with this being my Thor presentation. I did add the Dark World one, but that was just because I wanted a little bit of different look for some of my displays going forward. But yeah, this figure.
Let's talk accessories. I think that's where it's got it. And I know you've got all of those on your desk there. And one of the cool things, having the interchangeable arms, if you wanted to go for the look at the beginning of the film. And it's very surprisingly, I felt like I haven't actually popped them on. I kept the chainmail arms on, but even just seeing the articulation on that, it's seamless. It looks great. We talk sometimes about how you pose, and whether it's museum poses or kind of stoic static poses where you're not really straining either the suits of these figures or the joints or anything. I don't know if it'll hold up over time if you kind of have it in an action pose where you have the elbows bent on those. Kind of the same thing as the others, but these are things to enjoy. I mean, you can treat them well, but they're meant to be mini representations of the films on your shelves. I mean, enjoy them. Don't feel like you can't touch them. But those were there. The articulation in those, it kind of has like a ratchet joint, which is kind of interesting. Not a ton of articulation other than that, but I don't think you need a whole lot. Obviously, it came with a full complement of hands. I thought the cape was really well done. It was kind of interesting how it kind of came out the back of the box and kind of flowed, so it wasn't like all bunched up in the packaging. I thought that was good. It kind of came with the body armor that if you wanted to recreate the look without having the cape on, I think that worked well. I think I have not, just full disclaimer, I have not detached the circle plates on his armor to install the light up pieces, but those look cool. I think, again, those YouTube reviewers have done great with the LED light up. I don't have a black light handy, so I haven't done the black light to see what his eyes look like. But I mean, that was a very underrated feature of this character, this excuse me, of this figure that was released. I think one thing that kind of surprised me, Chris, I don't know if you kind of feel the same way, but Stormbreaker. Not that I expected it to be made of die cast. Obviously, it's plastic, but the art, the detail on it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I was checking that thing out. It's crazy. The Asgardian language etched into the side of it. The wooden piece is a separate. It looks like it's separate from the blade and everything. Some people had some issues with it. You know, it wasn't 100% accurate to the movie, but I wouldn't know unless I was doing a side by side picture. But one thing I heard somebody talk about was that it would have been cool if there was like an attachment that you could have made it so it was like part of Groot's arm. There was a ball ended version. You could hook it onto Groot. You know, that I'm not going to fault this figure for that, but it's just kind of a cool idea. Yeah. Yeah. Stormbreaker, amazing design.
Did one thing,
Yeah.
you know, speaking of like holding the Stormbreaker, I think the one thing I thought was kind of odd was the hands included. I don't know if you, I have the character, or I should say, I keep referring to the character. I had the figure holding it in his, with just one hand and the right hand. But I feel like the thumb has a weird placement. It's kind of, it doesn't feel like it's like you would wrap it around, like you'd hold it like it's not necessarily like has a hammer grip on it, like a making a fist. It's kind of like the thumb's kind of bent to the side.
Yeah. I
And
had
it kind of made it interesting to hold it, but I don't know. I guess that's just me being extremely nitpicky.
it was a little bit tough finagling it into the hand. It's holding it great. I mean, it grips onto it nice, but yeah, it's a little bit awkward. But I think maybe it was set up that way so you could open the hand up enough and not damage that thumb.
Very astute, my friend. Costume wise, he's got basically the hard plastic armor, the kind of the rubbery material for the arms. I think that's good. It's kind of got like I guess you could call it like pleather pants. I will say though, there's very limited articulation in the legs, especially right at the hips. Like you can't move his leg out that far. I'm fine with that. It's not like I'm expecting him to be in like dynamic crouch poses like Spider-Man would. And I wouldn't display my figures that way anyways, but it's definitely not something that I want to stretch that too far. So it's just something, if you don't have this figure in hand, I would say kind of caution somebody about that.
Yeah, it's potential you could rip a seam, his crotch seam, if you tried getting a pretty dynamic pose with his at his hips and stuff like that. So I would be careful with that area.
I will say though, I do not have and this figure came with one of the flight stands that Hot Toys does. A lot of the Spider-Man figures and stuff. I don't have it on my shelf with that. I actually have it just freestanding on his Infinity War base, and he stands fine. He's very flat-footed. I think the boots, it doesn't rock at all. I feel like that part's very sturdy. I think the one thing we haven't talked about, Chris, I think it's the head sculpt, and it's freaking amazing. It looks just like Chris Helmsworth.
They nailed this head sculpt. It's spot on. It's him right there. That's exactly what he looks like, with a very determined, stern look. I just can't get over it. He's got the slashes in his hair. It's just the coloring, the eye tone, everything.
Again, minor gripe, but like basically how the neck joint works, there basically you can kind of only move it side to side. You can't really have it pivoting up and down. I think they did that this way just because of you weren't going to be able to do that anyways with the armor behind his neck. So I'm not upset about that. I almost had a moment where my OCD, Chris, was kicking in, and the way that they had shipped mine, the head was not down all the way on the neck, and I'm looking at the front of the neck and there's like a brown spot on it. I'm like, I'm never not going to see that. And I'm trying to think like, okay, am I like that guy that tries to send it back? Do I just ask them to have them send me like a new neck piece? I'm like, can I get over it? And I'm repositioning it. And I'm like, he looks like a giraffe right now. He doesn't even have the neck. His head isn't even all the way down. So push the head down a little bit, spot is gone, it's covered. I think it was just basically maybe in shipping, like the backside of his beard rubbing against that spot.
Yep.
But when you look forward to these figures, and it's just like some of those things can be absolutely soul crushing.
Yeah, little defects here and there. Some stuff you can get, you can kind of let go, but especially if it's somewhere on the face or the front chest area, definitely inspect your figures when they show up. I sometimes, like this guy, I got him last week, but just before we recorded a couple hours ago, I was able to take him out and kind of play with him a little bit. So you got to be careful if you let too much time go by. I don't know what Sideshow's policy is for making a claim on a defect or something like that, but something to think about.
Something to think about indeed. So we're talking about our very inconsistent rating scale, and as I had said as we first started talking about this figure, Chris, I feel like we should go with a number of sweet rabbits that we would give this figure.
What are you thinking?
I'm going 4 sweet rabbits. I think this is the only Thor I have in my collection. I don't feel like I need to add another one. I like the character of Thor. I don't feel like I need to go back and add all the previous versions of them. I feel like Thor is, when you look at this one, you look at the road-worn Thor, you look at Gladiator Thor, I'd say this, out of the last 3 they've done, I feel like this is probably the best one, probably with the road-worn one just below that. They've really started to nail, I don't think you have to go back even as far as like the Age of Ultron one. I know you mentioned you've got your Dark World one that kind of had a foot amputation, and hopefully get that figured out at some point. Because that's, again, one of those soul crushing things. But yeah. I just feel like I don't need to add another one. I'm sure he's going to be in Avengers 4, and there could be another cool version of it. But if I don't decide to go that way, I'll be perfectly fine having this figure be out of one of my favorite films out of the 20 MCU films that we have, with Avengers 4. With Avengers Infinity War. So good character, good movie, great figure from Hot Toys. I'm just giving this 4 sweet rabbits.
Well, I hate to agree with you 100%, but I'm giving it 4 sweet rabbits too. It's the ultimate Thor at this point. And I would be surprised if they could outdo this one, but bring it on, Hot Toys. Show us what else you can do.
Yeah, prove us wrong.
Right. Yeah, no regrets with this figure. I'm loving it, and I can't wait to be able to, eventually set this thing up and kind of mess around with the lightning effects. And I'll probably try to just see how the lights look and everything, set them up with an eye patch, just kind of mess around with them and see what kind of display works for me.
Well, there you have it. And obviously check out a lot of those other YouTube reviews if you want to see the videos in person. But my final thought about this, Chris, is just the in-hand look of this far exceeds anything that you're going to see with the Instagram photos, with all the filters on them, the YouTube reviews in 4K. They're great, but there's no substitute for having this figure in hand and just, looking at it in your desk, looking at it on your shelf, looking at it on your DTOF. And yeah, Ultimate Thor, 8 sweet rabbits from the 6-scale Scavengers crew. All right, let's move on over to plug time. And we've got plenty to talk about here, my friends. So
go for it.
We still have got our website, 6scalescavengers.com. Just released this morning. We used our new logos that we had designed recently, put them on TeePublic. So as of right now, there's like a 2 or 3 day sale where you can get some of those t-shirts for $14. They're regularly $20. We're not going to be out there hawking them. It's one way to kind of support the podcast. Chris and I have discussed we don't have extra content to deliver. So I don't think using any kind of a Patreon program is something that would work for us. We have very minimal hosting fees. That's all we're looking to get back out of this. This is something that we would probably do anyways. So, that's there. And there's a very small portion between $2 and $4 that would come directly to Chris and myself to help with those hosting fees and stuff. So if you want to rep our podcast out there, we would happy to have you do so. And knowing that you're helping to contribute to the podcast, that's going to be my only plug. And we're certainly not there asking for money. We have our Facebook page. We are on Twitter, Six Scale Podcast. We're on Instagram at Six Scale Scavengers. We've mentioned our private group on Facebook multiple different times. I believe we're up to 39 members now and growing. I'm biased, but I think it's a pretty freaking cool community out there, and lots of great daily discussions, very active, and people sharing news and collections and just helping. You mentioned it a while ago, Chris, just helping people kind of connect with other like-minded collectors. This is a very niche collecting thing. This is not something that's very mainstream. So the fact that you and I take our time to make a podcast about this, and that there's other people out there that enjoy listening to that just blows my mind. You're already listening to the podcast, and if you have a friend or somebody else that you feel like would also like to listen, obviously we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and directly on Libsyn at sixscalescavengers.libsyn.com. We're also part of the Brick City Blockade podcast network. You can find them on brickcityblockade.com. Whew. All right, Chris, I think I did it.
Yeah. What about our social media handles?
Oh, rookie mistake on my part.
I know.
So where do they find you on social media, Chris?
So I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Vintage Viewport.
And I'm Jedi Scavenger SW. That does it, my friend. A very long episode. I'll earn my salary of $0, making us sound better than we really are. We're removing all those ums and ahs and hopefully sounding a lot better. We sound a lot better than we typically do. So we usually sign off with a May the Force be with you, but I feel like in honor of Stan Lee, I think for this episode and hopefully going forward, I think we just have one word to say, and Excelsior.
Excelsior.